Hey guys, it's Chris Mincola with the Mincola Group over at West USA Realty, and I'm doing our weekly housing market update. I'm going to jump right in here, and the biggest thing we're looking at this week is going to be the PCE report and inflation report that comes out tomorrow. That's obviously going to affect the bond market, which affects, you know, the mortgage rates, and the fear is that the inflation rate may be hotter than expected. Next week we're going to have the labor data, and that'll tell the tale there on where we are for that. That's kind of the dual mandate: inflation and the unemployment or full employment by the Fed. So since 2022 they've really slowed things down in the entire economy, really, from the standpoint of trying to tame inflation. Even though we've had some inflation issues with the spending that's been going on the last few years, and then too many dollars chasing too few goods, and then we have issues with the labor market because that's supposed to slow down the labor market so that we didn't have the inflation. In other words, in their mind, if we kind of tame production, tame investment, we're going to tame inflation. Yes, that's how they think. That's how it's labor over inflation. The Fed gets worried when people, make money, buy homes, have kids, as Logan Monashami at Housing Wire puts it, and they go out and buy things, which the housing sector really touches kind of on everything when it comes to that. So um, let's jump right in here and take a look at some of what I got here. This is actually a video I did, which we don't have to watch the whole video, but I just five admissions that Jerome Powell made just this week. This is on our Facebook page. By the way, make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook page, our Instagram page. I'll drop everything down here below. Of course, follow us on YouTube so you can get all the updates to come out on all the information as it comes out. Plus, you can see what's going on in the Phoenix area here. This was at a Greater Providence speech he gave just this week, a couple days ago, and he said basically tariffs are not driving widespread inflation like they thought. Now, there's still a worry that they could do a one-time price adjustment, but consumers have felt little tariff impact. In other words, where the inflation is coming in really is, because a lot of these companies are eating it or they're renegotiating their wholesale raw materials, all that from, the impact. And Stephen Myron, who's the new Fed uh, person on the Fed board, he basically went through all this this week, and he went through why he feels, for many reasons, why the Fed should be more at a neutral policy, like we've been saying, like Logan Monashami, Barry Habib, and many others have been saying we should be more at a neutral position. Scott Bessett's been saying that. Even if you're worried about the tariffs, you don't want to do a wait and see. We haven't really seen this huge impact from the tariffs. And if you're waiting to see, we should be at more of a neutral policy, not a restrictive policy where the Fed has been. And that has an indirect correlation with mortgage rates, but a direct effect, 65 to 75% of where the bond market is. That 10-year treasury moves with the mortgage rates. Okay, so it kind of mirrors each other. So we he said, consumers have felt little tariff impact. Wages are still beating inflation. You can maybe argue with him on that. I know people are feeling the economic crunch. People right now who are well to do, they're doing just fine. The retail numbers that came out that were higher than expected, with the economic data, that's a lot of the people out there that are well to do buying that stuff. Current inflation is nowhere near as high as under President Biden. This is from Jerome Powell. And business investment is booming thanks to the tax cut package that they just did in the big beautiful bill. By the way, GDP came in this week in the last quarter at 3.8. 3.8. So they're figuring it's going to be over 3 for the year. A big piece of this is the growth, and it was a lower dollar, the tax cuts, but lower interest rates Lower Fed's fund rate was another key piece of this. So we've got to get that down, and it should be down, not just that we want it to go down. It really should be down. When we look at this, the dismal labor numbers that we got from the Bureau of Labor Statistics were basically the last two giant revisions we had showed that almost 2 million jobs didn't exist over the last year or so. So, um, purchase application data for housing went up only zero point 0.3 week over week, but 18% year over year. And we've seen all these positive prints coming out, but it's working from the lowest levels. So these interest rates, yes, prices, but interest rates have really slowed since basically since spring of 2022. The housing market has taken a hit. Okay, it's really slowed things down. It's not crashing. It's just lower number of sales. Things are sitting longer, all that sort of thing. So, um, and I'll dig into the numbers here more in a minute. But I use this true inflation. I've talked about this before. This is more of the right now inflation, and it takes more data points than even the Federal Reserve Bureau of Labor Statistics takes. And the PCE inflation rate is what the Fed really hones in on. That's their real key target inflation point that they watch. Not that they don't watch the other ones, but PCE index today from Trueflation, which is the now inflation, because the Fed looks at a lot of rear view data information, which is what people always complain about. And I mean, one of the biggest components of that, like Stephen Myron brought up this week, is shelter costs, which could lag 12 to 18 months and makes up 36% of that whole inflation game. So in the PCE inflation, that's more a CPI, and PCE inflation, it makes up about 18%. So when you see this broken down, this is where we are today. Now, the numbers that come out tomorrow, they'll probably be higher than this because they're looking at old data. They're just slow and old. That's just the way they do it. But today's 10-year Treasury rounded up at 4.176. That should be about no. That should be around 1.75 to 2 points difference with the 30-year average across the country, and so that's 6.39, 4.1. The spreads between the two have gotten better over the last year to 18 months, but we're not quite at that 2% different level, or two point level difference. So that's where we are right now across the country. That's the average 30-year fixed. And of course, if you go through a mortgage broker, which we have access to, they will get you lower rates than what you're seeing there, better pricing, no junk fees, no processing or underwriting fees. We can even negotiate lower interest rates for you from sellers. And if you're going to a builder right now, especially the bigger builders, but most of the builders out there are offering incentives. I saw one this week starting at 1.99%, 1.99%. And that's not like stellar credit stuff. Quite frankly, I mean, in my perfect world, not that anybody cares, but if you've got good credit, your top credit rating, nobody should be paying over 3.5% interest rate for anything. That's just my opinion. But that's how our Federal Reserve and economic system works. Right now, looking at the inventory data right now, um, we kind of had a little drop off in August. We had a little bit more early on in the summer and the inventory, and then it dropped off in August, and now it's kind of jumped back up after Labor Day. And that's pretty typical. We see people that get a little bit more active after the summer months, maybe taking vacations, their house didn't sell before, they put it back on the market, whatever the case may be. But those mortgage application information that we looked at earlier, is part of that is sellers that are getting their mortgage application done when they list their home, so that they know, okay, if we find something we like, our house goes under contract, we can go ahead and put an offer in, contingent on the sale of our home. So right now in the Phoenix area, all the active properties been holding steady at about that 24,000 mark. Um, we see the if we go just with single family housing, it's right around 18,000. Um, It's not jumping for me here, but I just checked it a little while ago. For some reason, it's not updating right now. Oh, there we go. A little over 18,000, 18,600. So that's kind of what's happening with the inventory right now. The median uh, agent days on market at contract, in other words, how long it takes to get a property under contract right now, the median is 43. Okay. 43 days to get a property under contract. It's just taking a little bit longer to get properties under contract right now with the current um, restrictive policy of the Fed, which is really, uh, it's a miracle we're hitting those 3.8 GDP numbers with the Fed kind of taming the entire economy with that. And I feel like that's more of a factor, much more of a factor than the tariffs. I feel like the tariffs long term, 2 or 3 years down the road, are definitely going to be something that we're going to see huge impact from the good. We've got $17 trillion coming into the country in investments. We've got a lot of people bringing, different sectors of the economy back into the United States, which create more jobs. We should next week when we see those jobs numbers. By the way, we should see in there or begin to see the government people who were let go. So we'll see how that data works out. But right now, that it's very weak on hirings, but it's not breaking as far as unemployment goes. However, we hit 4.3, which was the original mark they gave us back in 2022. Now they're looking at like 4.5. They keep moving the goalposts, meeting the Fed and Jerome Powell. So we'll see how that goes. The median price, by the way, right now is 460. It's kind of hovered around, in the summer months and spring around 458. Right now, it's 460 in the Greater Phoenix area. So that's where we are as far as the median sales price. And when we look at, these are just some quick numbers for you here. 79 days average. This is the average closed days on market. Okay, different than the median under contract days of 40. What was that? 40. What did I have there? 43 or 45? 43. That was for under contract, and that was median. This is the average days closed on market. We're at 79 days. Again, that's a little bit higher than we normally like to see, but nothing crazy historically. 4.9 months supply. That means we're kind of in a, for the Greater Phoenix area anyway. We're kind of more in a buyer to balance market overall, um, which I'll talk more about in a second. Our absorption rate's gone up a little bit to 20.4. That's good to see. The average list price, because we were at like 18 on that, so that's good. How fast properties are being absorbed or sold. Average list price is 718. Average sales price, again, this is all price ranges, 559,000. And then the list to sales price ratio is at 97%. We usually like to see that around 98, 98%, but not too far off there. So that just basically means sellers are maybe giving up another 1% than normal in the Greater Phoenix area. The active properties are up, like I said, about 3%. Okay, this was taken on Monday, but the pending sales are up 1.7%. That's good. Week to week, that shows more buyer activity. And then closed units is up 7.5%, which is great. And we're up from last year too. So, but we probably, from the numbers we're seeing right now, if we kind of dig into these a little bit more, we're probably not going to beat where we were last year as far as the number of active listings, believe it or not. So we'll see how that all shakes out, but that's the way it looks right now. These are all the price ranges right now, and these are the number of units, the days on market for all the different price ranges. The percentage is in changes in the numbers of total inventory in those price ranges. So again, nothing really crazy happening there. Although we're seeing a surge in the 2 million to 3 million at 10.7%. So that's interesting. But that sweet spot is right around that 31.52%, right in that 400 to $600,000 range. So take that for what you will. That's kind of where we are in our market right now for the average price. Um, so moving ahead, if we looked at the Cromford Market Index, this basically tells us if we're in a buyer or seller's market. And this is important because we want to know what kind of market we're in, right? Now, your area may be a little different than somebody else's, okay, which I'll talk about here in a sec. But when that supply and demand are the same number, this market index would be at 100. 90 to 110 is a balanced range, according to Cromford, our local gurus who track all this for us. And below 90 is a buyer's market, over 110 is a seller's market. So right now we're at 81.4. Um, and that was accelerating a little bit more, but it's kind of slowed a little bit, but it's still kind of, tweaking up. But we see that our demand has gone up a little bit along with our supply, like we talked about earlier. So right now, overall, we're in a buyer's market in the greater Phoenix area. Okay. If we look at Fountain Hills at 156 on the index, so they're in a seller's market, they're top the list and they're up 18%. Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, Chandler, Cave Creek, Avondale, Gilbert, they're all in sellers markets, technically in sellers market, but very, very slightly. Um, we have Phoenix and Mesa, Glendale, and Peoria. They're in a balanced market. And Tempe, Goodyear, Surprise, Queen Creek, Buckeye, Maricopa City tops the market in a buyer's market at 47 in Maricopa. So big shift there on the index. So we've seen in a week over week, we've seen a change in the overall index there on those different cities. An increase of 5.9%. The week before, we were at 7.6%. So we've kind of seen a deceleration towards in the direction of a seller's market for the greater Phoenix area. And then this is our contract ratio. So these are the properties that are listed active and what's actually gone under contract. Last week we were at 32.5. This week we're actually at 31.9. So it's actually dropped off a little bit, but we're over the 30 mark, which puts us in a warm market. And if we look at the map of the greater Phoenix area, right now we see Mesa is in a hot market. And in that 85203, and we see that when we look at Phoenix 85037, that's in a hot market right now with the active to under contract. And so is Glendale 853110. If you want more information about what your property's worth or what your area looks like, everything else is kind of cold to balance in that map. But if you want more information about your community, because it is community, real estate is all about local, where you are in your local market. Please feel free to reach out to us. Again, I'm going to put some links down here below so you can check in that YouTube down below. You can check us out online. You can also check out your home evaluation, and you can get more information about where your market is right now. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks.